Hello summoners and welcome to another ProGuides video. I'm Crumbs and today we'll be talking about 5 sleeper OP picks and builds that you should be abusing for some free LP. You definitely know the popular ones already since they are all over social media including our own YouTube channel, but in this video we'll be looking at some of the lesser known picks and builds today. We'll be starting things off with Ivern Mid. This isn't exactly new tech, it's more of a revival. Ivern Mid has actually been a flavor of the month pick on more than one occasion. Around the end of 2020, he first showed up as a mid laner in solo queue, with him going on to be a pretty OP pick when the season first started. This led to quite a few elo inflated players, but hey, the name of the game is to abuse what's meta, so I guess you can't really blame them. Then earlier this year, he once again resurfaced, and this time he was even picked in pro play by Cloud9 when they were coached by LS. So what's the gimmick? Well, that's the thing, there really isn't one. There's no buying a support item and trying to perma roam here. Ivern just actually makes for a super powerful mid lane champ. Despite him being an enchanter style pick, he does a surprisingly good job of trading with other mid laners. In the jungle, Ivern's a pretty bad duelist. He's not a champion built for fighting people 100 to 0, but mid lane trading isn't all about going in 100 to 0, it's about short, bursty trades around each other's cooldowns. With his E, you're able to mitigate the majority of the damage your opponent is dealing to you. Then, you're free to return a big burst of damage back on your foe if you're able to get in range of the E's pop. Then there's his auto attacks, which hit surprisingly hard when you're using them from a bush, which you should be able to do pretty much 100% of the time as long as you aren't spamming his W randomly. Aside from just whacking your foe with autos and shields, he also has good pushing power, so you're even able to look for roams to help out your jungler if you need to. Post 6, things get even spicier. Much like Yorick, once you have Daisy, it's pretty hard for a melee champion to try to make any moves on you. Post lane phase, all the extra golden experience from being a solo laner means you'll have a huge impact in teamfights. Instead of being on the welfare jungle build where you barely have 2, maybe 3 items in the mid to late game, you'll easily be hitting full build in most games that don't end super fast. Alright, we could go on and on about how OP Ivern is all day, and he's also a lot of fun to play, but we have other things to talk about in this video, so let's get on to the build. For the runes, run Airy, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, Gathering Storm, Shield Bash, and Revitalize, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor or Magic Resist depending on your matchup. For your items, start with Doran's Ring, then on an early recall pick up Dark Seal. After that, go for Lucidity Boots and Moonstone Renewer. If the game is already going pretty well, you can upgrade to Mage Eyes right away. Don't be afraid, you won't die a lot, you got a lot of shields. If not, go for Chemtech Putrefier first if needed, then grab the Mage Eyes. Your last items will be situational ones depending on what you need for the game. Good options are Redemption, Ardent Censer, Zhonya's, and Staff of Flowing Water. Rabadon's is also a good last item, though it is a bit expensive. Part of what makes sleeper OP picks so successful is the fact that almost nobody plays them. Objectively speaking, they may not be better than or even as good as the most popular picks, but when your opponents don't know how to play against them, you get that extra edge in the fight. But that alone isn't quite enough to win you all of your solo queue games. You also need to have the skills to get those early leads and the know-how to use those leads to win your games. And that's exactly what we try to teach you over at ProGuides.com. Our top tier coaches over on ProGuides.com can help you figure out exactly what you need to work on. They're available 24/7, so it's never a bad time to come try one out. I promise there's at least one that specializes in exactly what you're looking for. These guys have spent years reaching the top of the ladder, so why wouldn't you want to steal all their solo queue tips and tricks? You can find the link to our website down in the description box below. Now, let's get back on topic, shall we? The second pick we have is Annie in the top lane. This one is a bit more of a situational pick. She actually struggles pretty bad against most juggernauts as well as a couple of specific bruisers like Camille and Wukong. But against the vast majority of top lane carries and bruisers, she's a hard counter that's super easy to execute because unlike in mid versus mages, she isn't outranged. In top, she actually has the range advantage. That's her biggest selling point to me. Most games, top lane comes down to volatile skill matchups anyways. Even when one side has the advantage, there's usually enough room for mistakes and counterplay that either opponent can use to get a lead. And once they do, it usually snowballs out of control pretty fast. But since Annie is one of the easiest champs in the game, you don't have to worry about slipping up and inting the lane due to some small mechanical error. Just play around your stun and constantly poke your opponent with autos and quick combos. When your stun is down, sit back safely and wait for it to be up again. Out of lane, you just play Annie like if she was in the mid lane. You go for picks and you engage fights with your Flash Tibbers combo. Now, here's the build you'll go for most games. For your runes, run Dark Harvest, Taste of Blood, Eyeball Collection, Treasure Hunter, Mana Flow Band, and Gathering Storm, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, start with Doran's Ring and then rush Sork Shoes ASAP. The extra movement speed helps a lot in the longer top lane. After that, go for your Liandry's Anguish, and if you need it, grab Oblivion Orb. Next up, build Shadow Flame, Void Staff, and Rabadons. If you need to upgrade to Morellonomicon, you can do so now, or you can go for Zhonya's or Horizon Focus instead. Next up, we have Twitch. Everybody already knows about Twitch Jungle, but for the most part when you see it, it's some wannabe that ends up feeding hard. We even have Twitch down in the lowest levels of our tier list at the moment, and that's because, statistically speaking, he's a pretty bad champ in the hands of the average player. But you're not the average player, you're watching ProGuides video to get better. That already puts you a cut above. But Twitch isn't a super mechanically hard champ. I mean, there are people that can pull off some incredibly orb walking, the so-called space glider, but that's the extra over-the-top stuff. You don't need that. Essentially, he's really easy to play. It's more about the positioning than anything else. And in the jungle, it's just really about smart pathing. If you can actually path in ways that aren't so easy to predict, you can pull off those insanely strong ganks and snowball so hard, which is exactly what Twitch relies on. Everyone knows about red buff to mid lane or level 1 in mid lane, but how about starting red and pathing to the other side of the map? There is also nothing wrong with taking more camps. Twitch is really bad at full clearing early, but there's nothing wrong with taking 3 or 4 camps then looking to gank like a normal jungler. Later on, once you have some more items, you can actually clear every camp super easily. That's where a lot of the bad Twitch junglers fail. They play strictly to gank, making them ultra feast or famine. If you're also taking camps, you'll be strong even when you don't get fed out of your mind. Now let's look at the build. For runes, take Hail of Blades, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Triumph, and Alacrity, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, start with Ember Knife, then build Berserker's Greaves, Kraken Slayer, and Collector. Usually, you would want Hurricane second on Twitch, but since you're the jungler, you'll be going for picks constantly, so the Collector's better single target damage works out in your favor. Anyways, next you want to buy an Infinity Edge, then you'll grab Hurricane before topping your build off with Lord Dominic's Regards or a Bloodthirster. Now let's take a look at Kled Mid. Kled is a pretty unique feeling champ. He does a lot of damage and is obscenely tanky, but his long cooldowns and clunkiness can make him feel really awkward, especially when you're picking him up. But trust me, that learning curve is well worth it. Kled is just an all-around good pick. He serves as a strong counterpick to assassins since he's durable enough to survive their bursty combos and also has plenty of damage to trade back on them. It still feels like no one really knows what Kled does, especially mid laners, and that surprise factor is sure to play in your favor. He's also great into other mid lane picks. Mages that move up too close to farm are prone to being hit for a huge chunk of their health if you can land his EQ combo. Aside from his laning, he also just offers a lot to a team comp. He's good as both a split pusher and team fighter, with his ult being a great form of engage that also enables other allies to jump into the fray. Let's take a look at the build you'll want. For runes, take Conqueror, Triumph, Alacrity, Last Stand, Demolish, and Second Wind or Bone Plating, with stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor or Mar, depending on your matchup. For your items, start with Doran's Blade, then build into Gore Drinker, Steel Caps or Merc Treads, and Death's Dance. Next up, go for Black Cleaver, Maw of Malmortius, and the Guardian Angel. Gore Drinker is great for teamfighting, but if you want a super strong early spike, you could trade it out for Eclipse instead, especially if you've gotten some early kills. Stridebreaker is another great alternative if you want the sticking power. Kled does so well in making assassin matchups look like they're on easy mode. There's pretty much no way for you to lose unless you miss everything, including auto-attacking minions. Having easy to play counter picks for otherwise very hard matchups makes climbing so much less stressful. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What's your secret pocket counter pick? While I feel like I'm giving away my secrets here, I'll tell it anyways. When someone picks Senna support, I go Xerath. It's a great laning phase, and out of it, you'll be able to 100 to 0 her and constantly zone her out of teamfights. Plus, it's a lot of fun playing Xerath support. So that's my counter pick, but what's yours? Let us know down in the comments below. Now, let's move on to the last sleeper OP. You're gonna like this one. Finishing off our list, we have Velkos as a bot lane carry. He checks off all the boxes you want to see for a bot lane mage. The most important of those is wave clear. If you can't outpush an AD carry, then you won't have the leverage to actually bully them. But with just a bit of AP and a few points in W, you melt the waves. The next big thing is his poke. Velkos' kit is really hard to dodge, especially for an AD carry that is simultaneously trying to farm under tower. It only takes a few Qs landing to do enough damage that your foes can no longer even think about taking an all-in against you. The other big factor is that post 6, he has deadly all-in power. All it takes is a single misstep from an opponent or a good play from you or your support, and you can easily 100 to 0 someone. His damage is so high that you can sometimes even turn 2v3s in your favor when the enemy jungler comes in to gank your lane inevitably and makes the mistake of targeting your support over you. Now let's take a look at the build you'll want for this sleeper OP. For your runes, take Comet, Mana Flow Band, Transcendence, Gathering Storm, Taste of Blood, and Treasure Hunter, with the stat runes being double Adaptive Force and Armor. For your items, start with Doran's Ring, then build into Luden's Tempest, Sork Shoes, and Horizon Focus. If you need the Stasis, buy Zhonya's at this point, but if not, you'll want Shadow Flame. Your last two items will be Death Cap and Void Staff, with the order depending on how much MR the enemy has. And that wraps up things for our sleeper OP picks and builds that you don't want to miss out on patch 12.9. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to sub so you never miss out on our meta picks and so you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know how you counter an otherwise annoying and hard to deal with champ down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below where you can discuss League further or just hang out and be a part of our community. I can't wait to see you guys back for the next video, but until then, good luck on the Rift and may the LP gods smile down upon you.